day.
So we just went live on Facebook. Good evening, wonderful people. Many thanks for joining one and all. We have an exciting special feature here at the Light 'em Up Lounge tonight with a shooting star in the cigar industry, a true gentleman and multi-entrepreneur. It's mesmerizing and fantastic to see such an enthusiastic, highly professional and well-accomplished gentleman in the early 20s joining us for a beautiful session tonight, and I'm very much looking forward to having you all on the show. Welcome to everybody who's joining us here at the Light 'em Up Lounge. Welcome to all the people tuning in via Facebook. As always, if you have any questions, please put them into the chat box here in Zoom. Put your comments, your questions underneath the live video on Facebook, and I'll make sure to forward all your thoughts and considerations to Alex. So without further ado, Alexander Berezowski, welcome to Light 'em Up, and thank you so much for taking the time and joining us tonight. How are you, my friend?
Thank you, Reinhard. This is fantastic. I'm very excited to be here. I can't wait to share these next couple of hours with you guys, and let's just be thankful that I was not on Dominican time when I logged in, so we're on time.
Speaking of Dominican time, Alex, you're joining us from the Dominican Republic. Yet I have a gentleman in front of me named Berezowski, blonde hair, blue eyes, a bit of a Californian surfer tan. What's the story of Alexander Berezowski, the Dominican cigar gentleman? How did that story come together?
Oh, that's funny. That's a great intro. First of all, I carry my grandfather's last name. He was Russian. He was exiled in Shanghai, and he migrated to the Republic mid 20th century. He married my grandmother, and she had my father in the Dominican Republic, who does not look Dominican either. And on my mother's side, I'm Lebanese descendant. So my grandfather's father was Lebanese, just had him as soon as he got here in the Dominican Republic. So he was essentially, or is essentially, from Lebanon. And I have a lot of fun with that. Really, I've grown and have been raised very Americanized. I went to an American school. I've always been oriented with American culture. I've always, I spent my summers as a kid going to camp in the US. I've always been in touch with the American culture. So that's why I kind of don't really have an accent, or most times I don't really have an accent. And I do have a lot of fun with it. People don't know that I'm actually full-blown Dominican. I was born and raised. My main language is technically Spanish, even though I'm speaking English most of the time. I can dabble a little bit of French here and there. Maybe Filippo wants to embarrass me a little bit, but I we've had some nice conversations. But I'm full-blown Dominican, and it's going back to you said the cigar gentleman. I wouldn't call myself so. I wouldn't bring myself so high, but I got into cigars as soon as I graduated high school. I was a big fan of cigars since I was a kid. 15 years old, I was very curious and lit up one of my father's cigars until he caught me, and I kept pursuing what I really felt a lot of passion for, and here we are. This is and I love sharing it with everybody, and I'm happy to be here, and I'm happy to be smoking cigars with everybody here.
So with that highly interesting family background and the story of yours, did you grow up surrounded by cigars? Was that a thing within your family, or did you have any previous, sort of cigar heritage or ancestors that were in the cigar industry, or was it just a personal interest of yours?
It was really a personal interest. When I was, I do remember walking into my father's studio and kind of personal space, his library. He's an architect, and he would sometimes design in his studio. Nobody really went in there, and he didn't even have a TV at the time in there. Go in, and he would either smoke his cigars or smoke his father's pipe, and that smell just, it really drew me in. And I was really young. I was so attracted. My grandmother always used to make fun of me. She said that I was an old man in a young man's body, because a young kid's body, because of that. She would have coffee, and I would want to sit down and have coffee with her. A kid, 11, 12, that's not normal. It's not that I wasn't out playing, because I've always been, really into sports, and it's been my thing. But I always felt that kind of, profound appreciation for a sense of like coffee and artisanal things like tobacco. So I don't have a tobacco background. Funny, oddly enough, Henke Kelner lives behind my house. Leon lives in front of my house. And, these are all individuals, those friends with my parents. Hojo Blanco, who I call Uncle Hochi, because, he just took me under his wing and really showed love towards me. And he went to school with my mother. And, I was really into the idea of learning about cigars after I graduated high school, and I started becoming a lawyer. I went to law school here, and I was working at the time part-time at a legal firm, at a law firm, and I went to my dad. I told him, hey, you know what? I'm going to graduate. I'm going to finish all this, and I love what I'm doing, because I think it's going to help me down the road in terms of a businessman, as I potentially see myself. But I really want to learn more about cigars and find out a way. If you can, call Carlo Fuente, call Hochi, call whoever who's really at a friend level. And he called Hoshi, and I went there, and next day I had a job. He didn't call him to give me a job. He's like, Alex really wants to understand how the factories work and how certain are really developed, not really made or whatever. Because growing up in high school, I would visit these tobacco factories and farms, because Danielle Nunez's daughter was in my class. So one of my friends and I were the only guys that were really into cigars as teenagers, and we arranged field trips there, and we arranged field trips to Davidoff. I remember when I was in 12th grade, before I graduated, a big tour in the Davidoff factory, at the Davidoff factory. And at the time, they didn't have such a strict seconds or rejects control policy. So my friend and I were just picking up seconds. And I'm telling you, at the time, and still nowadays, I think probably one of the most strenuous and rigorous rejection to seconds policy that I've seen in factories is Davidoff. So you would have a tiny little stain on a wrapper, and a perfect cigar would go into the second bin. And we grabbed just bunches of seconds or rejects and put them in our bag. And we had such a big party at my house. My parents were traveling, and it was actually, my buddy and I and 20 other people that were in us, because we're the only people that were actually going to be attracted to smoking cigars. It wasn't common, especially, and that's one of the things that people may not know too much about, that the smoking in the Dominican Republic, socially, these shops, these cigar bars have really developed and came out, into the scene in the last decade or half decade actually. So, I've always been drawn into cigars. That's kind of the point. And I wasn't, born into it or related to it in any way. I was just passionate about it, and passion grew, and here we are eating, breathing and sleeping tobacco every day.
So would you say that very natural approach and knowing people like Henke, Kelner or Hojo Blanco on a more personal level and not business related sort of gave you a more natural entry and a natural approach into the cigar industry?
Yeah, I think so. I don't, there's no credit that I want to take away from what I've accomplished, but it's all because of Hochi, because of how, Henke and Litto took me under their wing in Pro Cigar, being my mentor. And I can go on and on and on with different names, Nunez, Eladio Diaz, just so many individuals that are close to me and close to my family that just opened the doors and really became mentors for me. And I don't say that in a light way, in any single way. I think the trajectory is very long, the road is very long, and we still got a lot to do. I still have so much more to give. But it's certainly thanks to this immediate circle of titans in the industry that gave me an opportunity and listened and opened their doors. And I think that's you got to really be thankful for that.
So you mentioned at the beginning, you actually took a more traditional sort of business and university approach, studying law. Did you ever sort of imagine going into the cigar industry, or was it more like a sort of passionate side hustle or a hobby that you really were fond of, but never imagined as a career path?
No, I always knew. I mean, the way that I remember the conversation when I approached my father initially, and I told him, hey, I'm going to finish my career and everything, and I think it's going to help me in any potential business that I'm going to do. And I was a good student. I graduated with honors or whatever, but I wasn't really versed into it. I knew that I was going to do something with cigars. I didn't know what. I didn't know if I was, 4 or 5 years down the road, I was going to open up a factory somewhere that I thought was, advantageous in the DR, or I was simply going to, develop my own brand, which I really was never really interested. That's funny, because initially you don't see the whole panorama, you don't see the whole horizon, the full, the big picture, and it's only through time that you can kind of grasp these opportunities and see how you can impact positively both, the community and your surroundings. So when I was 4.5 years working in with Ochi and needed a very specific pedigree, when they were looking for somebody that was, 1, a lawyer, and 2, that was very well versed in the cigar industry, and was neither a great lawyer, neither too versed in the cigar industry, but I had been working for 4.5 years with Hochi, and I was graduating from law school, or had just graduated from law school. So when they were looking for somebody to become their director of business and strategic development, I was probably the only one that fit in what they were looking at. And I think I mentioned it before. I got a lot more from ProCigar and the experience. When I joined last time, I saw Scott Vines here. I wouldn't know Scott if it weren't for ProCigar and other people that I've seen here, and that really expanded, the aforementioned horizon, and it has certainly opened up different doors and different pathways to keep growing and keep doing what we're trying to build. And it's just the mission from day one: impact the community as positive as I possibly can, or as my team possibly can.
So going back to your first experiences with Hojo Blanco and
Yeah.
your your initial work at Tabacalera Palma. What was that like? Which parts of the business did you take care of? Which sides of the factory and the industry did you really learn at the very beginning?
Yeah, so I spent probably a year or so just doing different tasks that I thought at the time were like, I'm just learning, and I'm just doing it because Hochi's telling me to do them. But I can't thank him enough for making me go to the farm at 5 a.m, 2 or 3 times a week at least. And, he would say things like, see the plant's behaviors. And then I would get feedback from Daniel Nunez, he's been an agronomist. He's been so well versed with the agricultural aspect of cigars. And he would tell me, hey, you have no idea how important it is for you to understand it and see how behave before sunrise and after sunrise. And it's small details like that I grew into. And by no means I'm going to know a lot about any of that, but I certainly experienced it on a firsthand basis and on a very personal basis. And then I would learn different aspects of the factory and kind of, I think I should have been the one paying Hochi for, the first couple of years and in change I was being paid to just learning and seeing, areas where we can make more efficient and transform to more efficient and grow. And then I would grow into larger roles and more important roles. And at the time, I don't think I appreciate it that much as I do in retrospect. That happens with a lot of things in general, but I think I don't appreciate how important it was for, Hochi to tell me, hey, you're in charge of the developing 2 private labels for Cigars International or for JR Cigars or for Thompson or for whatever. And, those are things that help you in so many ways. And right now, building a brand and building a product and a service as we are, that has come into play and garnered so much importance to me. And yeah, that was pretty much the first stage and second stage. And then in general, I was more developed into and more versed into marketing role and product development roles and grew onto that. At the time, it was Hochi had his nephew, who was my business partner, Vinicio Cuello, as his right hand, and Vinny had me as his right hand. So we were essentially working directly with Hochi, and we started bringing in more people, bringing graphic designers, and if you go back to 2013, Hojo Blanco was essentially Tabacalera Palma, and then that year they completely shifted the boutique blends production and got the #2 cigar of the year after Cuban. So in the US, it was essentially the F55 was #1 cigar of the year. That completely changed the dynamic of the factory as soon as I got in. So it was very quickly and rapidly evolving. And then bringing La Galera and bringing his own brands and bringing, Samparai and bringing La Instructora, and then, focusing on really growing La Galera instead of just being Tabacalera Palma and producing less for private labels. And obviously with all that's been FDA and the limits with the regulations of bringing new brands or whatever, that really production for third party or product developments really kind of slowed down at the end of my tenure there. And we focused on developing a brand and making a name for Lion and the brands that were really the Hochi's portfolio. So it's really interesting how that shifted in those 4.5 years that I was there.
So I guess during your time with either Tabacalera Palma and ProCigar, I guess you obviously you've been in touch with all those people being around you. Like you mentioned the Kelner family, and I'm sure you sort of grew
Yeah.
up with some of their younger generation as well, like Klaas and
Yeah.
all the people. Like just for all those people who do not grow up in the Dominican Republic with neighbors like the Kelner family, how does that look like, and what does it feel like? What does it mean to you to have such an abundance of cigar knowledge and experience just within an arm's length of reach, right? And to have all these people as your neighbors.
Well, it certainly means a lot, and it's been crucial in terms of how, you know, how you appreciate things and kind of take them for granted until you see how big of stars these individuals are, and how much people respect them. They're in awe. I mean, I've seen famous basketball players, I've seen, you know, celebrities be in complete awe of these individuals that I have been accustomed to see my whole life. And I've seen you know, working directly with ProCigar, especially, and not just ProCigar, but Nicaragua is doing it as well. And these different association and collectives that are bringing all these this collective knowledge and experience more accessible to people in the last few years. And obviously these associations and programs have decades and more than 10 years, but to see them grow every year and to see how big and how important it is for people that are not really, you know, growing up next to a farm or just a couple miles down a road, you know, next to a factory. It's really impressive to see how much respect the community has for these individuals, and how, you know, how normal it really is for people that are inside the industry and are, you know, living in DR or living in Nicaragua, or, you know, they're either big shops that come and frequently visit to, you know, visit the DR. But it's not the same thing when you're just, you know, a phone call away to go visit one of these stars and have a cigar with them and see them eye to eye and see them as a friend. And I think that's really impressive. We kind of tend to forget how quick and how abrupt the social media impact is. I mean, all credit to you, for example, with this amazing initiative. I mean, I told you I don't deserve being here, seeing the pedigree of individuals that I've seen here, but this wasn't really, you know, this is becoming the norm right now, and it wasn't the norm 2 or 3 years back, and even as much more recent. And I think these platforms enable, you know, a lot of direct contact and genuine and authentic perceptions of these individuals. So there's two sides of it, and yeah, I think that pretty much covers it.
Well, you know, Alex, I have to say, like, full kudos to you, and my highest respect and regards for your entrepreneurial spirit and your entrepreneurial vision at such a young age. Just to give people a perspective, what age were you when you started your role with ProCigar?
I was 23 when I started working with ProCigar.
Right, and I guess that says an awful lot about your vision and just how you approached the whole industry. And that's exactly why I think it's so important and it's so amazing to have you on the show and feature your particular role within this industry, because it's a perfect example of a young generation of passionate people and ambassadors for this industry. And I think we truly need it, because it's the lifeblood and it's the future of the premium cigar industry. You know, a lot of people might be mistaken when they think, you know, cigars is for old dudes and people sitting in front of a fireplace with a big leather armchair, and it's also the fusty and dusty and old fashioned. And there's, you know, there's definitely a side to that, and we appreciate that. It's part of the culture. But I think it's also so
Correct.
important to bring
Yeah.
some fresh energy, some fresh blood, and that's really what you're exemplifying on a very high level.
Yeah, I think I'm proud of that in a way that at least I try to impact my immediate circle and obviously as many people as I can. But I think cigars that have been one for obviously the expansion and the outreach of social media. But I think it's the younger generation that is really focusing a lot in making cigars more approachable and making cigars, you know, I'll go and hang out with, you know, some of my friends and in places that are not common for people to light up cigars, and I'll just light up cigars casually and draw people's attention and kind of say, hey, it's okay, you don't have to be and in a gentleman's club to smoke a cigar. I think that's very important. But at the same time, I think it's slowly becoming into a norm. It's really something that's forming part of the modern culture, and it's just not something that's done by, as you mentioned, the older and the more mature gentlemen or women, because, you know, as you know, the TLE girls mentioned, and what they've been doing is amazing, and how they've been normalizing, you know, we mentioned in their episode and their show that, you know, it's you shouldn't be shocked by seeing more and more women getting involved and going to you know, to cigar lounges and knowing more than in general, because I think that's what the, you know, the collectiveness of the social media, the beauty of the art that this brings into the community, into society in general. I mean, it's not, it's different than other tobacco products. For example, like cigarettes, I don't really want to pinpoint specific products, but, you know, it's not like you're going to grab a cigar and kind of go hide away and smoke a cigar and take a, you know, an hour and a half, 2 hours to smoke cigars and not be reeking of cigar smoke going to your house. It's not like a cigarette. It's definitely marketed in a different way. It's definitely, it brings a different essence than just smoking a cigarette. So it's completely different. The way that it has been more approachable and more kind of attractive to the younger generation. It's a little polarizing in that aspect.
Sure, certainly. Alex, you mentioned that you do not have that rich family heritage within the premium cigar industry. Yet, I'm pretty sure with the entrepreneurial spirit that you bring to the table, you must have had some inspiration regarding that entrepreneurial mindset within your family. Did you have any influence or inspiration from your family on that side?
Yeah, absolutely. My parents are they have a picture firm and interior design firm, and it's all growing up. I've seen them; they're each other's partners, so it's kind of a kind of risky, a little monkey business there. Wife and husband being partners. No, I'm kidding, but they get along well, and I've seen how, you know, that entrepreneurial culture growing up. But aside from that, I really haven't, you know, my parents have always been very, you know, laissez-faire with me, and do what you want, follow what you want. And it's great because I've always felt that I've had their support. And I think that reflected in a very young age. And, you know, I created a event company when I was in my mid-teens. I would do events and parties, and I grew that. And then I started in things like sunglasses and things like that, and kind of grew into different roles and different projects. And even now, I mean, you have to really try and fail, and having my parents support, you know, as in, hey, just give it all you got. If you fail, you know, you're going to have a home to come to, you're going to have food. It's all you really need. So if you fail, start over, get back up. And I've always been doing that, and I really appreciate that. I think that's why, you know, I've kind of garnered an attitude of, you know, I can conquer what I set my mind to if I'm surrounded with the right people, and if I stay humble, and I'm appreciative and thankful to those that, you know, pave the way for success. And I'm very far away from it, but if those values are you know, stuck onto, and I say the same thing to a lot of people, you're going to be successful. It doesn't matter if it takes 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, you're going to be successful, and you're going to be liked. It's not that I want to be liked, because I think it has to be an innate quality of a human being to be, you know, humble, to be nice to other people, to do good and expect, you know, good to be done unto you. And if you know, you're hurt by other people, or you're done bad onto, you know, there's no eye for an eye. There's, you know, being humble, you know, keep your head high. And that's why I have different projects, and I'll keep bringing more. So, you know, when I left ProCigar, I started a project in South America that didn't take off, and then, you know, another project that really didn't take off either. And I had that attitude that I was going to keep building things that I believed in, because you know, if all these components were formed into, you know, impacting the community positively, into not just, you know, growing yourself, but growing together with the brands, with the smokers, with the members, with the stores, with even with your competition. I mean, I'm going to go ahead and say it here. One of, you know, I've seen Small Batch in a couple of your episodes here, and Small Batch has probably been one of the biggest inspirations to us, to say, hey, you can do things that way and be successful. You don't necessarily have to, you know, be a big catalog. You can impact different people in a positive way. You can give the opportunity to smaller and boutique brands that are not really traditionally given the opportunity to. And, you know, those guys have been an inspiration. I don't know them personally. I've seen Andrew, but you know, they have been an inspiration. I'd love to introduce you if you ever want to do that. I've spent quite a bit of time with Andrew and the whole team. Like, we're personal friends. I was always interested in, and I know this is a little off topic, but how they started the business and what they did. Yeah. So Andrew basically sat down and ordered from everyone under the sun that was available back in 2012, 2013. Literally every single online retailer. And after waiting about a week, between week and 10 days, he got all the stuff that he was waiting for. Some of the packages didn't come wrapped properly, right? Like no bubble wrap. None of them came with both of the packs. Shipping was typically 5 to 7 days, depending on what it is. So he just sat down and said, all of this is unacceptable. All of it. Like, we have to have shipping within 3 days. From the moment you order, the longest amount of time it's going to take, not counting, you know, snowstorm or some, you know, out of control thing, it has to be from our shop to your door within 3 days. Everything has to be free shipping. And then, yeah, a lot of people charge shipping too. Everything has to be free shipping. Everything has to be wrapped. It has to get there within 3 days, and it has to have a Boveda pack. And those are non-negotiable things. They truly changed the landscape. I mean, they approached it and they said, look, we can't compete with CIs of the world, right? Like, they don't order 100 boxes at a time. They order 5 containers worth. Their prices
on the cigars, and I'm sure you can talk about that. Like their prices on cigars are, completely different from what a retailer can get.
Correct.
So that's why they can offer, hey, buy a box of Monte Cristo whites of 20 count for $50. A retailer would look at that and be like, man, this is like 30% under my cost. Like I'm losing money. So they said, we're going to offer something that's not available on the market. We're going to work with the small batch companies. We're going to try and make the online experience as close to a lounge experience as possible. So you can go online, buy a $50 sampler and say, I like Davidoff Castagli, Arturo Fuente, and something else. And you're guaranteed to get probably 60 to 70 bucks worth of MSRP products. Good products, like you can just put your comments. You might not get 5 cigars, you might get 3, but you'll still get 50, 60, 70 bucks worth of products. So they focused on, first and foremost, good quality service, right? Like they're not a massive company. It's 5 guys, literally 5 of them. Their Cigar of the Month Club isn't, hey, what do we have a lot of in stock? Which is, they're like, they look at this month and plan for the next month, and then they'll reach out. They make sure that the things don't repeat every 3 months. It's a very, they're probably the biggest small retailer, under quotes, but they still run it as a very, very much like a mom and pop lounge, because that's what it is.
And I think that's the most important aspect in general. It doesn't really matter whether it's live. It doesn't really matter which part of the industry it is. But the point that I want to emphasize, and that's really what makes you and your approach unique as well, Alexander, is we're talking about certain qualities of an entrepreneur and certain qualities of running a business, no matter which side of the industry that might be in. And what is so inspiring is to see that at a very early age and from a young gentleman like yourself, Alex. And I would love to bring in a couple of the comments that we received, because there's plenty of people typing something into the chat box here, and I got a lot of DMs through Facebook. And we had a great comment from Filippo, and I'm honored to have him on the show, and many thanks for tuning in. Big respect to everything that you're doing.
Filippo, go ahead.
Hi. I was trying to do 3 things at the same time. It's no, I think that first time I met Alexander was so well impressed, and I was I really like his ideas and all the strength he was putting in the cigar pack idea. And I think it's the essence of the premium cigar family. I wouldn't focus the issue of his work on his age. Everybody knows that whenever we smoke a cigar in a lounge, you get together with people from different countries, cultures, social environments, and the experience of many that pass by this lounge, telling the story how they started, who came from Europe and landed in Honduras and met Palacencia and got the door of the factory open to make an experience, and they were asking themselves how come that would happen. It's part of this culture. And I had a conversation in the last weeks with people from Spain, telling how the young people in Spain are changing the culture of premium cigar in Spain, that it's known as a main Cuban market. And thanks to the young vision and this kind of trying to find new things, experience new items, are opening the market to new world products. You know, in Spain there is a very nice poem that says, "Caminante no hay camino, se hace el camino al andar." No, that you never see the path and the way you are doing till the moment you can turn around and see the trajectory and the way you've been walking through the time. And that's my wish to Alexander, to take the things he's doing and to have the patience to have the years go by and have the time someday to turn around and to see what he been doing through the years. And again, I think that one of his projects that I really found of, it's the MyCigarPack, the option to, and the credibility to offer to people that never smoke some cigars, to taste them and to open new paths and visions and knowledge to others. You can always do things better or different, but it's just a matter of having the time to do it. And I know Alexander has many projects in the drawer that he's gonna take out with time. But I wish him all the best, and I'm really happy that this family worldwide is cheering new adventures and new projects.
Many thanks for the great comment, Filippo. It means a lot. Thanks for your thoughts and considerations. Ian, you had a question. Please bring it up.
Thanks, Alexander, and thanks for your obvious enthusiasm and entrepreneurial spirit. As you'll probably guess, I come from the UK, and they're very big on Cuban cigars over here. Though I think we're getting more New World cigars, and more people are trying them out. One thing which I sort of have mixed feelings about is the constant requirement for novelty, and people bringing out new cigars all the time, and there's so many brands and so many blends and so on, which is great in one way, but I think it's also good for people to actually get a cigar which they like and then be able to get the same cigar in 5 years' time and not find that it's no longer available and there's something new there and you're constantly moving on. It's a bit like nice wine. If I buy a certain type of wine, I want to get the same wine next year. And I just wonder what your thoughts are, and sort of a slight concern, and I'm obviously a little bit older than you are, whether young people are constantly searching for novelty and perhaps don't get the experience of the really good Cuban cigars and the really good Nicaraguan and Dominican Republic cigars, and always looking for something new.
Thank you, Ian. That's actually a fantastic comment, and it's very interesting because that's one of the things that we really took into account when developing. And obviously, I do mention that we're constantly evolving, and we're going to be adapting in different ways that are going to be the most beneficial to the collective. But that's one of the things that we really focused and emphasized, was in bringing product that was one from renowned brands. It doesn't mean that we're not going to support or give the opportunity to the smaller brands, but there are just so many brands that haven't really, and I say this in the nicest way possible, they haven't paid their dues. They haven't, invested in visiting trade shows. They haven't gone to Interdebac. They haven't gone to IPCPR. They haven't hired a team of brokers or a team of reps. They haven't flown over to the UK or to Europe in general to expand and give the opportunity for people like you to try their brand. They, you know, they tend to hang on to the easy approach that you can have through social media and just, you know, sending cigars to people that have a lot of followers or a lot of following in general, and use that to introduce their product, which I think is fine. But at the end of the day, there's so many brands that have been in the market for years and years that have paid their dues. And there's so many people, so many smokers out there that haven't had the opportunity to try them. And what the concept with MyCigarPack is, we put in a different combination every month. And the way that we approach it is we approach reputable brands that have been in the industry for some time. It doesn't matter if it's small boutique brands, like, you know, we have smaller brands here than other bigger brands. For example, as Maya Selva is a small boutique brand, and especially in the US, which they don't have that big of a presence. Kaz Dagley, that is also here, as opposed to other brands, big brands that we also carry and we also represent, like Fuente and you know, and other larger presence brands in the market. The idea is to give the opportunity to people to try them. And a lot of times, you know, these individuals are, and I'm in constant contact with them, they are loyal to their shops, but they're still going to try out, because they're try it in a fun, competitively priced way before they go buy it at their shop. And I've had a lot of people that tell me, hey, I love the cigar that you placed there, and it's not in my shop. I'm going to go talk to my shop and tell them to carry it, because if they carry it, I'm going to buy a box from them. And I'm not necessarily looking, you know, to just convert every single member into a Cigar Yard purchaser, because Cigar Yard is the sister company of MyCigarPack. It's an online retailer. We've developed a similar structure to that, as Vlad was mentioning before with small batch. We will ship you one cigar if you want it. We will not discount the product, but we'll assume the margins in so many different ways. You know, right now we're offering free shipping. We can send you just one cigar. We'll ship it to you in a special pouch with a Boveda pack. We'll ship it immediately. Customer service is always going to be there. And if you tell me, hey, I like this cigar from MyCigarPack, where can I get it? Well, that's why we link every single website and every single detail of that specific product in our platform, so you can learn about it and go buy more of it in your store and in your shop. For example, we're looking into expanding to Europe with MyCigarPack, and we're probably not going to be able to open up, you know, our commerce in terms of Cigar Yard. So if you like that cigar, you're probably going to be looking at your local club or your local shop to see if, you know, they carry it and buy more of it, rather than, you know, listening to, and I'm not saying it's a bad thing, but rather to listening what that specific, you know, store manager wants to sell you, you're going to get what the manufacturer wants to put in that pack. So when I call Vlad, when I call Filippo, when I call different people, I tell them, hey, what do you want to put in? And I tell them, I don't want you to give me 1,000 custom cigars, because even though people can see the quality of that cigar, they're not going to be able to buy more of it. So if you can build that continuity and that relation between the consumer, the shop, the local shop, the brand, and ourselves, I think that's and that's where we're going to find that, you know, long-term success. There's clubs that sell you rare and limited cigars, and I think that's cool if and that's fine if you're one of those people that are constantly looking for rare things that haven't, you know, or just selling things, you know, have been stocked in your humidor for 10 years, and you're essentially not going to move it because that brand doesn't exist, or because that's a leftover production for something that was destined for something else that didn't really took form and shape. Or I think it's finding the fundament and finding the purpose, which, it has been our main inspiration with MyCigarPack is how do we connect the shops, the manufacturers, the consumers, the collective community through a very experience. So I very well vouch for what you said. I want to punctuate that we support smaller brands, but there are brands that haven't seen around anywhere, and they're offering, we'll give you these cigars for free, and I'm like, I don't want them for free. I want to buy them because it's going to create a continuity with the consumer. You're going to have to be able to place your cigars in shops. Cigar Yard is a secondary gateway for people to buy if they like to buy online, or if your local shop doesn't carry it. But at times, as I previously mentioned, a lot of people, and I manage the both of the Cigar Yard and MyCigarPack emails. I manage the customer service emails. I manage the Instagram and the social media. So I'm in constant and direct contact with all these individuals that are telling me, "Hey, I love this cigar. I'm gonna talk to my local shop for them to carry it." And I told them, "Hey, great, that's awesome," because that's a genuine approach on how that brand can grow onto different markets and different shops because you like that cigar, because you want to buy boxes of it. And it's a very important thing that you've mentioned, and it's essentially a fundament of how we operate, why we came into into operation.
Thank you for that. I had a sort of slightly different emphasis on my question, which is, I like Nicaraguan cigars. I've been to Puro Sabor now 3 times. I think I'm the only Brit that's been there 3 times, certainly in the past 3. And I really enjoy those cigars. I haven't yet been to ProCigar. I must try and get there. Though I know I can do both January and February for Cigar Festival and justify it at home. But it's just, when you look at the ratings in Cigar Aficionado every year, there's very seldom do you have the same 2 or 3 cigars appearing in several years. It's always something
Correct.
new. Now, it just seems that it's a bit strange that suddenly a cigar which is number 1 one year isn't in the list the next year at all. It's just faded completely. And I think it's sort of this desire for novelty. What's new this year? The people going to shop, what's new? And I'm still working my way through Fuente. I've had most Padrons and I love them. I like Oliva, but they've got a huge range to get through, and Fuente's got a massive range to get through. And I'd like to try more of them.
Correct.
And then there's all these new ones as well. So I'm spoiled for choice. I want to, you probably know, we have to pay very massive duty in the UK to bring cigars in. So it's that you have to sort of pick and choose a bit, and the choice is overwhelming, I find it.
No, I absolutely agree. So going back to what you were saying about different large portfolios within one brand, that's one of the things we emphasize a lot. So you'll see not just one specific Fuente or one specific Maya Selva or one specific X brand in the packs. You'll see scattered all throughout in different months, because what we do every month, and we bring out a mild pack, a medium pack, and a full pack, because I genuinely think that's the only element of distinction that the consumer should be really concerned about when trying different cigars, because you can't really force upon a full body smoker mild cigars, or bring strong cigars to mild smokers. It doesn't matter how long you have smoking. I mean, my father has been smoking for 30-40 years, and he'll still enjoy mild cigars, and he will do he'll retrohale and what have you, but he'll enjoy the mild cigars. So taking that into consideration, bringing different portfolios, different lines of one brand is essential, because you're not going to like all of one particular brand, and that's the essence of tasting. And going back to what you were saying and the duties in UK, we've been doing extensive research into areas and to states and to countries that we can develop at ease in the US, shipping directly in the US to Europe and obviously globally. You know, we've expanded to Mexico, we've expanded to Israel with no complication based on duties and stuff. But there are countries, you know, say UK, Spain, Germany, France, that are really large markets and are the largest markets in Europe that we can't have a direct link. We're going to be working, and I'm completely open to developing, you know, I'm not going to say a franchise, or I'm not going to, but different ways of partnering to bring this exact concept into Europe and and globally as well.
And I have to say, I will smoke heavy cigars. I had an intemperance the other day from Vermicraft, which is a really heavy cigar, but I'll also have a light Hoyo or a Macanudo or the Padron Yamasa, which is a lovely morning cigar. You know, and I think it's great to get cigar smokers not just to think, oh, well, I only like strong cigars, because it depends on the time of the day, it depends on your mood, it depends on whether you've eaten all sorts of factors. I don't only drink strong red wine. I like a light white or a light red sometimes. You know, it's personal taste, and I think people should try things. So don't just stick to heavy cigars or medium cigars. You know, try the full range.
I think you couldn't have said it any better. You stole the words from me, and
thank you.
Alexander, I'm curious now. Since you're still such a young gentleman, still I feel you carry some very old school and sort of traditional values in you. And even though you said you manage all your social media accounts, like the Instagram of Cigar Yard and MyCigarPack, how do you feel about these new ways of communicating, these new ways of doing business in comparison with a more traditional and sort of old-fashioned approach? Where do you draw that line for yourself?
Well, that also a very interesting and very dear and close to subject to me personally, because I think I got from my father a lot of that classic feel, because his father passed away at a young age, and he was essentially he was under the wing of his mentors or architecture mentors and other people that essentially raised him, that were really much older and much more old school. And I've always been taught that you look at man in the eye and you shake his hand, and that's how you close a deal. I personally don't have Instagram. I tried it out for a couple of years when it came out, and I haven't had a personal Instagram for years. And I think that is very interesting, how social media and these platforms have come into play into ways that you can develop your business and branch out. But essentially, I was very reluctant to open up accounts or bringing new partners without seeing eye to eye, and we're if it doesn't work out for you as a brand, I'm still going to smoke your cigars and buy your cigars and appreciate you for who you are. But if you don't understand our concept, if you don't see eye to eye, if what you want to do is sell and get your product out there, that's part of it. But if you don't see the whole vision, it's not going to work out for both parties. If it doesn't work out for both parties, it's not going to work out for the community. It's not going to work out for the shops. It's not going to work for everybody involved. So whether I like it or whether anybody likes it or not, shops and competition are going to be completely directly linked to our concept and about. And it's funny because when we started late summer last year, when we had some issues, we had to take down the platform because at the time we did a soft launch with PayPal, and at the time PayPal was kind of contradicting policies in terms of accepting tobacco payments. So they shut down our account, and we really didn't have our credit card processing payment gateway ready, and we had to turn it down. We relaunched in August, and I can tell you that it was a very slow start and a very conservative and very organic, because I didn't want to be in every single YouTube channel. I didn't want to be in every single Instagram account. I didn't want to send these packs to people that, were exposed as influencers, not because I didn't believe in it and not because I didn't think that was the right way to go, but because I'm so ardently classic and organic in ways of approaching the marketing. I wanted people to see what we were bringing in terms of, just seeing eye to eye and kind of letting the product get to the people. We had to shift. We had to really get into YouTube, get into all these channels that I think are amazing, are quintessential for the development of the service, but at the same time is not. It's just, I'm such a classic guy. I have such a classic vision, and I wasn't seeing eye to eye with I have partners. I should mention, of course, I have amazing partners. One of my best friends and his father, and I have another set of partners that are unbelievable partners who, they've all just given me resources, and I've obviously invested of my resources, and they're, hey, you do your thing, do your vision. We trust you. We're going to go with you, and we're going to drown with you. If we have to drown with you, if you drown the ship, we'll drown with you. But, they had opposing thoughts. They had, hey, you have to be more present in social media. You have to take on the YouTube. You have to take on, these channels that I'm very, alienated to because of how I think. And I'm not saying that these are the correct marketing pathways to grow a product, because they are. They're the modern day way of growing your product and getting it out to the people, especially when it's something that you want to expand globally, and when it's something that, when it's a vision so ample, you want so many different people to get. I don't just want the people that want rare cigars. I don't just want people. I want everybody. I want people that are just starting. I want people that, have been smoking for 20 years. I want everybody. So when you have such an ample vision and such a wide range of potential members and people that are involved in brands and what have you, you really have to adapt. It's been a challenge, a personal challenge. I've obviously, as I've mentioned, I've gotten the support of my partners and support of everybody that has been involved. You are obviously a key, a key fragment, just as the girls at TLE, as I mentioned earlier, and just so many people that I can go on and on and on. And I'm very thankful. Even people that have just, subscribed to just try it out, and they're confused, and they email me and they're like, hey, why did I get this and not that? And I explain, and for most of it, I see eye to eye at the end of the day with everybody that's involved, and that's amazing. It's been amazing to kind of adapt, and at the same time, it's amazing to see the potential that these platforms give you. I mean, go back 4, 5, 6 months back. I didn't think I was going to be. I didn't know what Zoom was. I Zoom to first, actually I downloaded Zoom the week before you did the lounge session, and that was my fleet with more people in the room. And it's not because I don't like seeing other people. I'm actually honored, and I'm happy to see all these faces, but it was too. So that kind of feels the trajectory and the change, and I'm open to many different things, because when you're really confident on your product and your service, and you think it's going to be good for other people, and it's going to be good for different fragments of the vertically integrated chain, name it that, you gotta be open. You gotta be confident that once people try it out, they're going to see the benefit. And brands, the feedback of the brands has been amazing. When I have Filippo here, when you have 10, 12 people that have never heard or tried Maya Selva, going crazy about Maya Selva and raving, and I'll tag Filippo in every comment that people say, hey, this cigar was fantastic. I've never heard of it. I haven't even heard of it before. And I'll tag Filippo because, that's what I want to transmit, and if Filippo wants to say, hey, where do you live? What's your shop? Well, that's a big shop. They can actually bring in our product. Hey, go ahead, please reach out and try to get your brand there, because you'll have, as I mentioned, 10, 12 customers there, because you enabled and you gave us the opportunity to place it in our packs, and we got it to the people. So it's how the collective works together and how we work hand on hand and see eye to eye.
I think that's a fantastic point, and I couldn't agree more. And that ultimately it's about unifying the industry as a whole and bringing all those people together and taking into consideration different ways of doing business and different paths of how cigars are distributed and sold and enjoyed and appreciated. And ultimately, I think having that mindful, very giving and most positive approach that you bring to the table is really the way forward for the entire industry. Because if we're all doing a good job, ultimately it's going to help the entire industry and take us all to a new level. Less of a competitive approach, but more of a unifying one where—
Correct.
And you perfectly explained that before. Like what you're doing with MyCigarPack is also giving a lot of value to some of your classical brick and mortar or your classical retailers, because people will familiarize themselves with the industry and with fantastic cigars, and then have an opportunity to purchase them close to wherever they are, right?
Correct. And even those competitors, even those that have come before us and that operate in a different way but have kind of the same essence. I have a lot of respect for other people that are, following the same, or, came before me and came before us actually. So, it's been interesting to see how it develops and unfolds. And I think it's going to be a very interesting next couple of years of growth and of interacting with different people and different stores and different fragments of the industry and the collective, as I mentioned. So that's amazing.
So despite your young age, you have a lot of experience within that industry already, and you also have a very sort of holistic view on the industry as such. Besides social media, which we're talking about quite a bit, what other sort of disruptive elements have you seen, and within your years of experience in the industry, what were some of the biggest evolutions that you have seen over the last couple of years?
That's a very interesting question. I think the way that a lot of, call them boutique online offerings have come up, I think that's very interesting. Go back 5, 6, 7 years back, in the US, you would see big players, big time players, catalogs, Thompson, CI, JR, famous, best cigar prices. And then, as Vlad mentioned, the year that a small batch started was 2013. And then after that until now, and still this year, you've seen a lot of even big shops go online and take their big clientele and offering that comfort of stay your home. You don't really have to drive by and get your wife angry for you being at the bar or at the club or at the lounge 2 or 3 times a week. Just we'll send it over to your house. That's a big disruption, but at the same time, I wouldn't necessarily call it a disruption. I think this is particularly the Cigar of the Month clubs have been, and the specialized Cigar of the Month clubs, because there's always been and there always will be big catalogs are always going to be wanting to sell their excess inventory. People like the small batch Cigar of the Month club, that it's not necessarily a particularized, but it's also not, we're not running excess inventory. It's kind of in between. but these specialized cigar of the month clubs that really put in a lot of work into the process and the planning, and I'm working 2 months prior to shipping out and the packs. I'm bringing the product and arranging and placing and saying, hey, do you like being next to that guy, or do you really want to not be in this month, or what cigar do you want to bring out? Hey, I'm bringing this cigar. I was planning on bringing this cigar out in IPCPR or PCA. That's not going to happen. We might as well bring out 500 with you and kind of get a feel for a feedback from the market and the consumer before we actually launch it, and see where we're going to focus on. If we're going to focus on more on the Southeast, or we're going to focus on the West. I think that's probably one of the most interesting. That's why I'm so endearly attracted to it and attracted to its potential development and how it's grown in the last 2 years. The growth has been absurd. So it's a disruptive niche in the market.
Now, keeping that side of the business away for a moment, since you also work with some of the biggest brands, manufacturers, brand owners, and you have a lot of experience in the marketing side of things, where do you see some evolution there? Less on the retail side, but more focused on the brands themselves.
Well, I think a lot of this is interesting. A lot of the mechanisms and the channels of marketing that these online structures take to develop and their markets, to develop their consumer base, have really caught on, not necessarily from the subscription programs, but just the way that the way that these channels or our channels used to promote these brands works so well for the brands themselves, that the brands themselves are taking these routes with their own product, creating like special pairings channels on YouTube, or doing giveaways, but they're not necessarily just, hey, I'm gonna give your product, bring it out, but more of like, let's engage. Tell me what you think about that cigar. Tell me, everybody's gonna like things for free, but there's something in exchange that these channels have brought into as kind of a requisite. Tell me what you think. Would you want the cigar in a larger size? And so many different factors that differentiate from the traditional structure of bringing out product and placing their marketing efforts into, that are still going to be there. There's still going to be a chunk of the market for it. But there was such an unexplored segment of the market and the community that wouldn't really come into live as much if not just us in terms of the online sites or subscription services, but the overall social media community, the internet, having these events, having the herfs, the online herfs, the things like that it's not just, hey, I'm going to show up and I'm going to light a cigar, but we're going to discuss what you really feel about it. And it's going to be a much more direct feedback than, I'm going to bring this product out, let's see if it sells. Okay, it sold so well in Toro and Robusto, but these Lanceros are so hard to sell in this specific market. So you have different ways to kind of, one, test, and two, kind of influence and convince and pitch and market your product that would have much more receptiveness than with the traditional methods.
Alex, take a little glimpse into the crystal ball with me, if you will. If you look ahead of yourself a couple of years, what's installed next? What other projects do you have lined up? I know you're always like a duck, calm on the surface and the feet are away underneath. What would you still like to achieve? What other plans do you have that you really want to put into effect? And what plans do you have to share with us?
That's a nice little curveball. I think there's a lot of ideas and projects that I'm softly kind of getting into and seeing what may work based on potential regulations coming into effect. And the amazing thing of how we're trying to globally expand and globally connect is that there's so many markets out there. You know, there's so many ways of bringing small fragments of what we do that may not work great here or that do work great here. And I'm saying here in the US mainly because that's our main market and where we're established. In different parts of the world, I think Cigar Yard and MyCigarPack they are technically just getting started. We launched essentially fall last year with MyCigarPack, and Cigar Yard was opened up in December. I think we're actually working on the new Cigar Yard website that's going to launch within a few weeks, and it's going to have features that I've never seen in other, not even in other industries. And I think there's a lot of groundbreaking things that are going to take a lot of time to adapt, but at the end of the day are going to benefit the consumer so much. So we're just getting started with both of these, and then there's some other ventures and ideas that I'm softly kind of developing, and I'm very anxious to get the opportunity to bring into the cigar community. It goes, you know, much further beyond than a subscription service and an online retailer. It's gonna come into play. So there's a lot more coming, and there's a lot more energy. We're just getting started.
Exciting times ahead, that's for sure. Now, sort of coming back full circle to where we actually started, if you take into consideration some of these business values that really sort of make Cigar Yard and MyCigarPack what they are, what would you say are the quintessential core pillars that make your business and your approach unique and will make them successful on a long-term basis?
Without really giving too much away, what we think the secret formula and secret recipe is going to be, I think you know, I mentioned earlier core values of just working hard, staying humble, and trying to do good for everybody that's involved is going to be a essential part. It's going to be the salt and pepper of the formula. But if you're lacking in just 1A customer service, I loved what Vlad's intervention, you know, going back to what he mentioned about small batch, saying, hey, well, nobody's shipping product that's going to be guaranteed fresh at your door. So we've covered that. Shipping free, well, we've covered that. Now, there are certain things that come into play, say, you know, no minimum orders, 5-packs, you know, the traditional 5-pack, you'll have a box or a 5-pack or of a specific product. Well, what if you just want to try one cigar and you don't necessarily have to be on MyCigarPack to try it out? You can order one cigar and you can order that cigar combined with other single sticks and different things that we're going to come and bring into play. But I think customer service has to be top notch, shipping quickly, keeping the cigars fresh. I think those are the pillars, and above everything, just maintaining authenticity and being genuine. I think that's going to be key. Again, I wish, or don't necessarily wish. I think looking down the road 2 years from now, and we have the same conversation, I would certainly love that these would be the factors that would have allowed us to grow and to connect with more people and to expand and to, you know, make the community better. So that pretty much is it.
Now, when you look back at when you actually started in the premium cigar industry, and when you first rolled your business, did you ever have like any idea of how this whole thing's going to evolve and turn out ultimately? I mean, as you mentioned, you studied law. You always had that passion for cigars, but
yeah,
do you have any clue what you were getting yourself into?
No, not really. I mean, I did have a you know, a vision with longevity and things that would take time, and obviously things that are still going to form part of the process in developing not just these projects. We have been taking, or that I personally have been taking since I started in this, but I saw a lot of potential. I didn't know that this was going to be the particular or, you know, unique way that we were going to expand and develop and grow, but certainly had an idea of how it was going to be and what it could be. So I didn't really have, you know, a grasp on these things coming into fruition, but the vision has always kind of, you know, been the same. You know, keep your head up high, work hard, and try to see the loopholes in the industry. Try to see where you could be better. Try to see, you know, where you can bring in the best product. And if you don't believe you have the best product, you know, just look down, grab your, you know, go back to the drawing board and well, got a little. This is DR. Let me open up here.
At least you're still on the Wi-Fi, or you still get internet.
That's funny. Yeah. Am I here? Welcome to the Dominican Republic, everybody. So I think, you know, if you don't think you have the best product, or you know, go back to the drawing board and make it until, you know, work on it until you think it's the best.
Alexander, I think that exactly what you were just describing, that work ethic, the individual approach that you take there, the passion you bring to the table, and your entrepreneurial spirit in combination with that vision of yours, and really seeing opportunities once they arouse, is what makes you unique. As I mentioned at the beginning, for me, a rising star in the industry, and actually not just a rising star, because you're certainly well established as a businessman, but it means a lot to me to see that vision and to share your story with our global audience and with all the people out there. I think you're doing tremendously well, and I really, really appreciate you being on the show and sharing all your thoughts and considerations with us. Alex, I wish you nothing but the very best for the future. And please continue that wonderful journey that you're on. Continue the hard work and put in all the heart and sweat and soul, and your passion is really inspiring. And I truly hope that we got to inspire a lot of people out there who are tuning in tonight, and that we could share some of your individual story and the opportunities that you're bringing. So thank you very much for that, and all the very best for the future.
No, I thank you so much. You're too kind, really. I'm truly honored and humbled that you wanted to have me here. And, you know, as I mentioned, I'm not deserving, but thank you so much. I really appreciate everybody tuning in and their feedback. And as I always say, our doors are always open to ideas, to contribution, to working together, to just connecting and being friends, and that's what we're here for. I've always said, you know, cigars are an interpersonal hobby, so you can't really smoke cigars by yourself all the time. You have to share with people. You have to share your experiences. You have to it's something that you really hold on to and take on to express with your loved ones, with friends, with strangers. You sit down with somebody and you see eye to eye, no matter how different you are. So again, thank you so much. I'm very humbled and honored and thankful for being here.
Thank you so much, Alex. And what you just said perfectly sums it all up, because ultimately, and especially in this industry, we've all experienced it, but you know, we can't really emphasize it enough, is that it's all about the community. It's about our global cigar family. And it's about, as Barton just mentioned, the three things you need. He wrote, it's about being humble, being hungry, and smart. And I couldn't agree more. Ultimately, it's about bringing people together, sharing our love and appreciation for what we do, for the wonderful product that is premium handmade cigars. And as long as we have that community spirit in mind, I think then we're all going to be tremendously successful and well and ultimately happy in the end. And that's what matters. So thank you all so much for tuning in tonight. What a wonderful and inspiring session. Alexander Berezowski, a pleasure to have you at the Light 'em Up Lounge. Many thanks. And to all of you guys, have a wonderful evening. Please tune in again. Oh, before I forget it, we have an exciting week ahead. Bloody hell. Tomorrow, it's going to be Nestor Andres Plasencia. Friday is Fuente Friday, and it's going to be real Fuente Friday because we have Carlito live at the lounge, and he's not doing an awful lot of these sessions, so that's going to be super special. And then finally on Sunday, we will have Sean Williams from Cohiba. So an exciting week ahead, and I'm really looking forward to these sessions. We kicked it off tremendously well with Alexander, and I can't wait to see you all again tomorrow, Friday, and Sunday. So please take care, be safe, have a great evening. And again, Alexander, big hands, big applause to you for everything that you're doing. Keep it up and all the very best. Thank you all.
I appreciate you, Rennie. Thank you. Thank you so much.